Welcome to this latest episode of the Best Fleets podcast. I'm super excited to have K&J Trucking with me here today. And I'll tell you why I feel like that's a bit of a coup in just a second. Before I do, I should introduce you both. First, we have President and owner, Shelley Koch, and of course, Carrie Anderson, Director of Communications. And here's the thing. K&J won the best small fleet category, the best fleets to drive for home edition. And I know you've got an article being written about you. And I know that the governor announced like official K&J Trucking Day. What is happening over there? What kind of year are you having? And actually, maybe that's my first question. How's the year going? Y'all seem to be doing very, very well.
Well, in terms of notoriety, we are.
Yeah.
In terms of the freight market, not so much, but otherwise, life is still good, and we're no different than anyone else. It's a tough market today, and we're getting through the year, but we're sure celebrating these wins that we're getting. So
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So that you mentioned the freight market, and of course, you are predominantly a company with independent contractors. Is that right?
yes,
And so you've got folks running their own businesses at a time when it is very difficult to run a business. And so a little later on, I want to touch on all the things that you do to help support your folks as small business owners.
Sure.
Before we do that, I want to start small. I want to start really, really locally. And I was looking at, I pulled out a bunch of things from your questionnaire from Best Fleets, and I noticed some things that you do at sort of a very intimate level with your drivers. So that have to do with work-life balance. For example, health coaching. You do health coaching with your drivers, including meal planning and personal shopping.
Yes.
Yeah.
How did that come about? What is going on there?
I think the best way to explain it is that everyone here cares so much about the drivers and their health that I think our safety director was the first one to start this process of taking drivers out. If they went to get their physical renewed and they had high blood pressure or borderline on their sugar, she just loaded them up in the car, took them to the store and said, eat this, don't eat that, eat this. And that's kind of morphed into doing some weekly or monthly, I'm not sure how often Carrie posts them, but we do some educational things to our drivers. Right now, our safety department's on a high blood pressure campaign for this quarter. And so we do a lot of one-on-ones and we do a lot of broadcasting, and maybe Carrie can expand on that more. I don't know.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is we see what needs to be done and we try to match that need. So I think that's really what Jennifer, our safety director, saw, was that there was a big need and a gap there for education. And a lot of these drivers maybe could participate in something like there's lots of places around town that have health coaching. That's very difficult when you're an over-the-road driver. So I think we've just kind of seen that if we don't provide these things for these people, sometimes they go undone. So we are happy to step in where needed and to get professional help for them.
I have a how can I say? So this comes up a lot, particularly around generating health programs and supporting driver wellness. And I have heard different responses from drivers in different companies. One of the ones that stood out was when an owner brought in all of these new programs, and some of the drivers said, "This is super exciting, but how dare you tell me how to live my life?" and I thought, okay, I mean, I can see that, but like, it's a good idea. Being healthy is just better for everyone, but also there's this independence thing, right? And so how, A, have you ever experienced that? And B, how do you sort of create a culture that supports the uptake of those kinds of ideas?
Sure. Go ahead. I would say we really haven't had a ton of pushback because we aren't pushy people. So we're not pushing our agenda at all. We're making it available. It's all volunteer. If you have to see a video that says do this for a high blood pressure or do this for, nobody seems to be offended by that. Right. We're just simply making the material available. We never make it mandatory for anyone here to do anything like that. So I myself have never experienced any pushback. In fact, each time we're just on a May walking challenge right now. And so we always pick up a few extra drivers on that. And it almost seems like every year we have a driver who is like, does a total transformation in their health. And I said, if we keep doing this, you know, by the time I'm 110, they'll all be really healthy. But it just seems like it's a driver a year, or a couple of drivers a year where it clicks with them and they just change their lifestyle. So I haven't experienced any pushback. Have you?
No, I haven't really. And I think, you know, I've been on my own health journey this year, myself, just eating healthier, and I've lost some weight so far and still going. But I think that, you know, it's been really inspiring actually to be open and honest with the drivers and vice versa. Like, we had a driver and his wife who lost significant amounts of weight, and he and I were friends. I think that that's the underlying thing of a lot of this is you can come at somebody and say, here's a suggestion a little differently if you're actually friends with them. So for me, I remember talking to Zach and saying, hey, what are you guys doing? Here's what I'm doing. And here's a meal I really like. And it's just, it's very organic and natural in that way. So I think our drivers don't get as offended because it's not some prescriptive program.
Right. You're not coming down, laying down the law saying you must do this now. It's
right.
Yeah. Interesting. I like that. Foldable bikes.
Yeah.
We've had those.
We could roll one in here if you wanted to.
Those for years, and they are super successful. They just fold up. We ask them that they put it in the front of their truck so that it doesn't get dirty. Unless they have a cover, then they can put it on the back. But most of the folks that really, we have several of them, right? And you check them out and take them. And then if you really like them, we encourage you to buy your own. But that way they just keep cycling through, and then people understand, hey, this is a great way to exercise on the road.
Cycling through.
Cycling through. No pun intended.
I really like the idea. I believe you said a lot of this was sparked by your safety person. Is that right?
I think we've had she was the one on taking him to the grocery store. We've had a health program here for, I don't know, 15, 20 years. Those bikes have been around for over a dozen years. So this is nothing new for us. We always have some things that we can make available to our drivers to try. And because you know how many people don't have exercise equipment they never use, right? And so this way they don't have to invest in it. They can just try it. And if they like it, we can help them get it at a discounted price or whatever the case is.
Right. So if I move out a little bit from, say, specific health and wellness to something that bridges sort of the very personal to more of a work life thing, you have self-defense training. And one of the interesting things in that description of your self-defense training was training on how to articulate what isn't feeling right. This I have not seen. People say self-defense training, like how to use a weapon, how to run away, things like that. But the articulation of the danger, I have never heard of someone describe that before. And yet that seems like a gimme, right? That seems so critical. Is that?
It is. Yeah. That actually comes from our safety director as well. She's a star, I guess.
Yeah, she is. We should have her in here.
She's a previous highway patrolman, and she has a lot of good information. And she talks a lot about a person's just general feeling, right? When you start sensing danger and you start feeling like this isn't right, what you should do and how you should do it. She does a lot with our women drivers for self-defense as well. And so she's really spearheaded that movement within K&J.
There was, what was that book out? The Gift of Fear, right? Like paying attention to that. When something doesn't feel right, that's okay. Pay attention to it. Yeah. I like that. And I imagine that the uptake from the drivers, I'm sure they'll really appreciate that.
Yeah, we've done that mostly on a one-on-one basis. It's just something we have available for them. Again, not something that's forced, you know, it's really kind of our MO. And we've had good interest in it, especially from people who are newer to the industry. Or, you know, sometimes there's been people who've chosen, you know, just gotten divorced or something has changed in their life. And so they're interested in a little bit more security in a different way. So, yeah.
I like it. I want to move out a little bit, but before I do, something caught my eye because I have over on this other screen, I have your website up, and there's something that's just jumped out at me, and it has to do with your core values. And the third one is we own it. What do you own? What does that mean?
You're the second person to ask me that.
Oh, really?
We own it all. Like we own our decisions, we own our mistakes, we own the work we do, we own the fact that we're we're here for the drivers. I mean, it doesn't really matter what it is, we own it. So if we have a dispatcher who makes it, was funny, I was talking to a driver this morning on late deliveries, and he said, oh, I was talked to because I had a couple late deliveries. And I said, listen, we don't just track driver late deliveries, we track dispatch late deliveries. So we own it if we don't dispatch correctly and don't set that driver up for success. So it really doesn't matter what the topic is. We don't pass the buck, right? We don't pass the buck here. It's like, if a driver calls in and they have a problem, it isn't like, well, so-and-so did that. The answer is, I'm sorry that happened to you. Let me see what I can do to fix it, right? So we own the process.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like there's a flip side to it. What was the phrase that was also used here? Courageous honesty.
Yes. Oh,
Right.
yes.
That when you own what's happening, that expectation extends to the other person, right? We need you if and when you make a mistake, we need you to own that as well. Does that
Yeah.
basically capture the courageous honesty?
Absolutely. Well, I think it does, but I think it goes a step further. It's sometimes easy to not be honest with people, to be, you know what I mean, to be frank.
Mm.
And so it's having the opportunity or the backbone to voice something that's clear and kind at the same time. So courageous honesty doesn't allow you to just kind of vomit out whatever gross thing you have to say about another person. It really holds you to a level of being kind but honest at the same time. Does that make sense?
It really does. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you can be honest with someone, and still acknowledge that they're worthy of respect.
Absolutely.
So,
Well, not
yeah.
they're deserving of respect,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
We live in this world where it's okay to just start calling names and be ridiculous if you disagree with someone.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't tolerate that here. That's not how we do things here, right?
Right.
So
Right. This was a question I had at the end, but now I'm going to ask it like now.
Okay.
Because you've been in the business a little while and you've seen some changes in people.
mhm.
How would you say that the driver's needs and approaches to training and communication have changed over the years, right? In terms of, yeah, how their expectations, the things they say to you, how they want to be treated, things like that.
Sure. I think it's probably the answer everybody knows, which is they're a little more technology driven.
Mhm.
They prefer to use the texting instead of the phone. Drivers that have been in the industry longer still want to have the one-on-one, the personal. Unfortunately, old-time drivers don't place as much importance on home life as younger drivers do today.
Ah,
The younger drivers are fabulous, but their work-life balance is a little more important to them
mhm.
than, let's say, I mean, we've been in, this is our 45th year. So we have guys that have been driving all of those years, right? And so, I mean, not always here, but I think our longest tenured driver
41.
41 or 42 or something. So we've got some tenured drivers here, and they just have a different perspective than, let's say, someone getting into the industry. But definitely they would prefer to have stuff done electronically versus on the phone.
Mhm.
Don't you think?
I totally agree. And like, we just had a policy thing that we had to send out, and we sent it out electronically, but
Mhm.
we also have a backup plan for those who will not ever sign it that way, you know? So we know that, and it kind of informs the mixed methods that we
Yeah.
use.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And what about the how can I say, the mood of the communication? So I had the sense that the older drivers just tell them like it is, right? If something isn't working, just say it. And from what I've heard from other people in the industry, need to be a little more sensitive in your messaging with younger drivers. I don't know if that's true.
I don't see that here. I'm actually the other way.
Yeah.
I think
Really?
the old drivers have a harder time being honest with us than the young
Mhm.
drivers.
Huh?
That's my opinion. Like the old drivers kind of beat around the bush, and I'm not supposed to question authority, and
Yeah.
I'm just supposed to shut up and do my job. And the young drivers are all like, what are you doing that for? Why do I gotta do that? Which is okay, which
There's
is great.
value in that. Yeah.
And how we treat them is probably, I don't feel like we have to be softer or different
Mhm.
with them. Do you?
No,
Yeah, at least here.
at least here.
Yeah.
And I think
Mhm.
a big part of why we're able to treat drivers the way that we are, why we have fewer problems maybe in some ways with than some companies might, it really stems back to we're very careful in our recruiting process. And it's an incredibly intentional process. I was a recruiter here for a while. Now Leslie is a recruiter here, and she's part of the third generation of K&J. She's married to Shelley's son, Dan. And I just know how careful that recruiting process is. And in that we want to make sure that if we're getting somebody who's going to constantly be annoyed at everything, because you can tell that when you're in an interview process, that we're not going to be their magic bullet. I mean, we might have won best overall small carrier, but we're still not their magic bullet because it's something inside of them, right? So I think a lot of this stems back to who we hire. We really hire the best of the best.
And
I
they
think,
have to fit.
and they have to
They have
fit
to
it.
fit.
Yeah.
Even really great drivers don't always fit at K&J, right? Because we're not going to change our culture and our processes for you.
Yep.
Right? This is what we do. This is how we do it. And we would love for you to join us. And if that fits with you, that's great. But if that doesn't fit with you, we can give you the name of 5 other companies to try, because we're not going to be your fit.
Yep.
So,
We're not a fit for everyone.
And we might as well get that out of the way at the beginning.
yep. Why waste time and money, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think Carrie, yeah, you captured that your recruiting is very intentional. That is this is a critical idea versus just sort of get them in and just keep turning them over. And I like that a lot. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
And so I want to talk a little bit, excuse me, about coaching and communication. One of the things that jumped out in a bunch of different places in the Best Leads questionnaire was Shelley's very hands-on. Shelley will have a conversation. You know, Shelley will touch base on
Shelley.
Yeah, and that
I love
is
it.
that is just is that just the way you like to approach business, or is it you know, how did that come
It's
about?
really love to help people. I don't know how else to say that. That's just kind of a mission for me. It's kind of how my purpose on earth. And so I would love to divest myself, honestly, of all of my actual work and just spend as much time as I can with drivers, because they're really, some drivers are really great drivers. In fact, they're all really great drivers. They're not always really great businessmen, right? They're maybe not always great money managers. They're maybe not always great, taking time off at home, having family time, right? And I feel like I can step in and help them with that, and in a way that's received well. And then we can eventually get them on their own feet where I'm not involved, right? And so that's the ideal thing. And I have, as Carrie said, this is 3rd generation coming up. I have 2 boys in the business, and they're starting now to kind of act the same way. And so it's always kind of good for me to see that my boys are taking over, walking in and helping them with financing a truck, buying a truck, selling a truck. Because again, we're operator based, right? Maybe getting them set up with the right CPA, maybe get some business planning done, maybe the right bank, maybe retirement planning needs to be done. I mean, who knows, right? So maybe it's a family matter and we hook them up with some counseling, whatever it is.
Right. And you can't really know that until you are sort of, till you get in there and get your hands dirty and understand the person. You mentioned seeing your sons do that as well, because on the one hand, with a relatively small company, with companies like that, they tend really to rely on those personal connections. But if something, you know, you take that person out and then the whole thing kind of falls apart. But somehow you've managed to imbue others with that, you know, basically.
Carrie does the same thing. Everybody here is empowered to do the same thing I do. I just think I have more time.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to.
And I think she's just got so much experience. Like, you have such amazing experience in the industry that I couldn't even, you know, begin to hint at. But there are certain things that I am better at, like getting somebody set up with, you know, payments on their phone. We've had drivers who've lost a debit card online. And you know how hard it is to get a debit card again when you're on the road and you can't know when you're going to stop somewhere to get one. So, you know, just being able to set them up with payments on their phone, that's the kind of thing that the people that Shelley hires, she focuses on people who have that innate sense inside them of, we need to try to help this person. There's got to be somebody here at K&J with the skill set to help them. And that's kind of how the health thing came up. That's how, you know, her boys have been working with people and helping them to get their finances in order, helping them to sell trucks. I mean, it all comes from, we need to be able to help them. We can't just say, well, good luck with that. Bye. That's just not our way.
Which does happen. elsewhere,
Yeah.
but
It does.
But that's not our way, you
Yeah.
know? If we know when we're out of our depth and if it's something they need a professional for,
okay.
definitely if we can help them, we will.
I feel so in terms of your role, director of communications, that's both internal and external, right? So
Mhm.
you're
Yeah.
managing a lot of that messaging. In terms of the external messaging, I feel like you've got to have the easiest job in the world. Like K&J's got a lot of stuff going for it.
It sells itself pretty well, I do
Yeah,
have to say.
that's amazing.
Yes.
Okay. So, oh, here's another quote that jumped out at me, but I think it's connected. Drivers never have to wonder where they stand, right? So you're just going to tell them, tell it like it is.
And the
Again,
messaging is the same.
right.
Yep.
Doesn't matter
Again,
who's talking, we're all gonna say the same thing.
okay, yeah. And again, in a respectful way, but like this is
Mhm.
what's going on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
One of
Okay.
my favorite quotes, I'll bring it out. Shelley's not going to be surprised. It's from Brené Brown. I love Brené Brown, but she says, clear is kind and unclear is unkind. And I think that's something that we do a pretty good job of living here with our drivers. And I think that they see that. And that's why they're attracted here, is because they see that we are being clear in our communication with them as much as humanly possible. If the markets are bad, we're not, tiptoeing around that. We're talking about it because we want them to know, oh, I got a little extra this month. I should save that back because the markets aren't necessarily going to massively improve next month.
Just in the last couple of years, I've seen an uptick, if not in the actual financial literacy of drivers, at least an interest in it, and more of an interest in companies trying to get that financial literacy to the drivers, because traditionally, not great future planners.
Sometimes.
Yeah. And so I imagine that's been a big part of how you help them be good business people as independent contractors. Is that?
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Okay.
I'm sure this is somewhere, but we do weekly videos and we talk a lot. When times were really good, we talked a lot about this is not going to last forever, the whole thing. And now that it's bad, we talk about different ways to save money, to cut expenses, that type of thing. And just
Right.
what we hear on the street.
Right. Right. What's that old fable? Is it the grasshopper and the ant? One of them plays all summer and the other one is just slowly socking away the food. And when winter comes, and winter always comes, one of them's prepared. Yeah. Okay. Use personality profiles. How did that come about? Have you been using them for a long time, or?
Gosh, how were we exposed to that?
I think it was through
Something.
EOS.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
Through the leadership team at K&J kind of started a system called EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System, in an effort to try to kind of get some more systems in place for us. It's really hard to work on the business when you're in the business. And so the goal was to try to get us to a place where we're working on the business as well, working towards goals. And one of those implementers that they had used a personality profiling system in their past, and kind of introduced the leadership team to it. And then they brought it to the rest of us. And we had all staff training on it a few years ago. And it's, there's so many personality profiles out there. They all teach you something. But I think what's unique is that we're using that with our drivers and our staff, and we use it still when we do hires. And part of that is just to know how this person's going to respond in a stressful time, how this person's general, demeanor is going to be in the office, so that we can be prepared to interact with each other in a better way.
Interesting. I like that. I like that a lot. It makes a lot of sense. So many things I want to ask you about. I'm going to ask one of the big ones. And when women in business are in interviews, inevitably someone will say, I'm going to ask you a question now. I want you to answer on behalf of all women everywhere for all time. And I'm not going to do that. But when I see K&J and I see companies like Garner and Brenny, right? So these very successful trucking companies run by very successful businesswomen. Are you doing something different? Or are you just running a good business? Is there something special about being?
Great question.
Yeah, that's a great question. I never think of myself as a woman in business. I mean, I am, but you know what I mean? That's never mattered to me. And I'm guessing they'd say the same thing. So I think part of it is just throwing that whole title off and just going to work. I do think women bring a level of compassion that sometimes doesn't come through in the male dominated business, or if a male's in charge, just simply because we can be more vulnerable, and vulnerability is important as well. And I say I can be everybody's mother. As old as I am, like, I could just be your mom and people aren't going to get mad at me, right? So I don't know. I don't put a lot of thought in it. I do believe, though, that women tend to be a little bit more caring and compassionate, and that might help. I don't know. I have no idea if that's true or not. Do you have Carrie?
Yeah, I think one thing that Shelley is really good at is not listening to no as an answer, you know? And I think, I mean, with respect, of course, but I think that, you know, since the beginning, she took over this business. I'll brag on her now for a little bit since she wants to brag on herself. She took over this business when her father unfortunately passed away, and that was in 1991. And she's been running the business since then. Her mom was a huge supporter, I know, of her in those early days. But there were people taking bets against K&J Trucking that how long it was going to take for them to fail. And I think that that's an important part of our history. Not that this is all just based on spite or something, but I think that you know, not having people believe in you, and knowing that her dad believed in her and her mom believed in her, and I think you've chosen to really, you know, believe in yourself and believe in the people you work with to empower us to be something unique in the trucking industry. And I don't think that's necessarily because you're a woman, but I do think it's because you're tenacious. And I think that you saw, you know, a chance to make something better and to dream something bigger. And I think that that's a beautiful thing.
I love that. I love that. And so
Yeah.
if there was a young woman watching this, let's say she's 25, she is stepping into a role that maybe it's around recruiting or dispatch, whatever it is, not necessarily on the road, but not an owner. Any advice for her?
I mentor quite a few young women, and I always say, be yourself. Oh my goodness, be yourself. So many women think they have to change who they are, especially if they're in an industry that's more male dominated than female dominated. But you don't, and you shouldn't. You should demand the respect that God gave you as a woman, and you should be yourself. Let your personality shine through. Those to me are the big things right there, because if you're right for that job, you will excel.
Yep.
Nice. Perfect answer. Come on. A couple other programs you have, and I just want to get sort of a quick picture of it, because I feel like it's super important for people to know that K&J is doing these kinds of things and that companies can do these kinds of things. What's vocational rehab?
Yeah. So for those that are in Canada, might not be as familiar with it. In the US, the government does provide vocational rehab to individuals who have some sort of either disability or maybe an acquired disability through an accident or things like that. And then they will help them to either become employable, to learn life skills, to learn how to use different technologies that can assist them in being able to still complete their job. So we have worked several times with individuals who've been referred to us by Voc Rehab because they know that we're willing. And we've had one gentleman I'm thinking of in particular had an eye condition, but his condition did not preclude him from being able to drive for a very long time. It was just that he had to wear special contacts, and his previous career where he was working with cutting down trees was not something that was safe anymore because of his eye condition. So, so we worked with them on understanding a little bit more about what was going on and being able to see if we could accommodate, and it turned out we could. So, our big thing is, I mean, if you can do the functions of the job, then we'd love to have you, you know, it's really, that's all that it is. So.
And so there are a bunch of people out there who all they need is someone to say, you know, you're telling me I can do the job. I'm telling you I can do the job. Now give me the chance.
Yeah. Yep. And we've had several times where our safety director has worked directly with either Voc Rehab or outside organizations. I know specifically, I can't remember the name of the organization, but when you're getting your CDL physical, there are sometimes some special hoops you have to jump through if you have a physical disability, especially like if you're missing a limb, things like that. And she's worked specifically with those drivers to help them overcome that.
Yep. Yeah.
And this is, I want to stress this again for people who aren't familiar with the company. It's not like you are a multinational corporation. It's not like you've got 10,000 trucks, right? Like And so these seem like big complex programs, but you are sort of this scrappy little 100 truck company, and yet you can do all these things.
This
It's
comes back to the fact that we care. I mean, it
Right.
really does. You just
Yep.
have to care about people and it works. I mean, it's not that hard.
Yeah.
I think we listen to their story when they
Yeah.
call and we
Mhm.
say, you know what? No one's listened to you yet. No one's listened to what your disability actually is. Like, let's talk about that a little bit more, because to be certain, there are individuals that we unfortunately cannot help
Mhm.
because the function of the job is such that it wouldn't be safe for us to, help them to become a driver. There's certain times where the answer is no, right? But if we can help you in any way, we will do our very best to try to
Right.
do that.
Sometimes it's no, but here's some other opportunities for you with people we know in town.
Yep.
And that's the beauty of being a 45-year business. Like, other businesses in town that might be able to utilize them. So,
And then we
Absolutely.
can kind of pitch them to the other
Yeah.
business of how cool they are, and that's something we've done before too.
Right. I
Yeah.
love this.
Yeah.
So we talked a lot about the support that you're giving drivers on a bunch of different levels, and a lot of sort of personal touch points, things like that. But there was something else here, and it was more about getting out of the way. There's you have a committee decision process when it comes to resolving things like accident disputes, and the company stays out of it, a lot of that process. Is that right? So how does that work?
we just present the facts and give it to a group of typically owner operators, and they can ask questions if they want, but it's all kind of anonymous about who it was. If they want a lot of information, we'll hook them up with our insurance folks, whatever the case is. And then what they say stands within our company. And we give it back to the person involved in the concern to begin with. And if they still disagree, they can appeal it then straight to our insurance company and kind of plead their case. And then if it's still, I mean, they're final, right? We stay out of it. They're final. So
Right.
we don't have to do that very often. Praise Jesus.
Yes.
But, yeah.
Yeah. But there's still a lot of trust there, like stepping back and allowing the process to take place.
No, it's common sense. And quite frankly, 100% transparency here, they are harder on themselves than we would ever be. So it's not
Absolutely.
that hard to trust them. In fact, sometimes I'm like, well, that's kind of harsh. Maybe we should
Yeah.
soften that. I mean, you think about these folks driving 120, 130,000 miles a year. I mean, come on, cut them a little slack, right? This is a tough dang job. So
But they don't cut each other slack.
no,
That's for
they
sure.
don't. They don't.
So sometimes we have
Yeah.
to say, now think about it this way,
Mhm.
because we'll give them more information and then they'll say, nope, they still shouldn't have done that. That's still their fault, and they take it very seriously. But I think
They
part of
do.
it is they have such respect for K&J and for Shelley. And I think that they want to make a decision that's right for all of us down the road, because we all are interdependent on each other, especially even though we're an independent operator model. Our one person's mistakes affect the other person, and we are very open and honest about
Yeah,
that.
we are. We live
Yeah.
and die together, right? So.
Yep.
That's it. And I imagine, yeah, there is also just a general sense of professionalism there when they make those decisions.
Sure.
Oh yeah.
We
for
want
sure.
all of us to be here, and I can't give you a pass when you're
Yes.
down here.
Yes, for sure.
Yep.
Yeah. Excuse me. I think we covered that. As I said, you do have a lot of different programs going on. Have you ever had a time when you discovered that you put something into place and it ended up not working, or something that did work and you discovered it's not working anymore?
Sure.
Tons of times. How much time do you have?
All kinds of stuff. I mean, we are nothing if not open to new ideas. Some of them flop, absolutely. My favorite one was, we did the scorecard, right? And so
Oh
we
my
would give each driver their score, and it was based on what the telematics told us. And so we'd give each driver their score. So the top 10 drivers loved it. But the bottom 10 drivers, instead of taking this as an opportunity to improve, became so distraught. And I mean, it was like, we have to quit giving out any low scores because it's not working well at all. And that's not our intention, is to make them feel bad. But in any company, there's your top group and your bottom group, even if they're all wonderful, right? So It's, in fact, one of them is one of our, what I would say our most successful fleet operator was in the bottom floor, and he said, Shelley, I can't do this anymore. And I said, I'll just quit sending him to you. It's okay. So it's
So,
funny, but yes,
so
we flop.
yeah. So you stop sending them to the bottom
Oh,
performing.
we stopped the program altogether and switched.
Altogether, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we've switched now to a different program that it uses AI generated kind of attaboys and attagirls for driving decisions. And a lot of it's AI, and then it sends some of the bigger concerns to our safety team, and they review it. And then they either say, wow, you know, yes, you had a harsh braking event, but that was a good thing because you didn't hit the guy in front of you. And so then they'll make that an attaboy or attagirl instead. So we've switched to that model, and we give them out gift cards on a regular basis based on driving behaviors, and that positive reinforcement seems to be our go-to.
We do best with that. We really do.
Right, right. So we're coming down to the end of our session here, but do you have people like beating your door down to come and drive for you? Because given everything that you're describing,
We get a lot of phone calls. I will say that, and you know that from when you recruited. We get a lot of phone calls. But no, we can always use better, you know, more drivers, more good drivers, but or drivers that fit. It really comes down to that. We probably had 3 or 4 in the last week, and we hire by committee, which I know sounds crazy, but when Leslie, our recruiter, gets a call and an email goes out to, I don't know, 5 or 6 of us with her initial intake on the phone call and the application and how she feels, we all weigh in on it. So operations safety, Carrie, because of her experience, and I get in on it. I don't always respond as quick as they do, but I like to be at least involved with who they're talking about. And so there can be people that say, yes, let's go forward. No, it doesn't sound like we can make this person happy. And that's the big thing. If you live, you know, in an area that's not a traffic lane for K&J and you want to be home every weekend, we just should never hire you, right? We're just setting you up for failure, and us. And so those are the things that we look at. So we hire by committee, and we're very picky.
We are.
Yeah,
work history is a big thing for us because we want to make sure that you know, we are given an opportunity to succeed with you. If you're the kind of person whose work history shows us that anytime that there's a slight thing that goes wrong, you go looking for the next job, we're probably not the right fit, you know, because that's really, we are such a longevity based company. That's what we sell our customers, and we want to maintain that. So we are a little bit picky, but we can always use more people calling in and talking with us. And we will, our promise to you is something huge, is we will be honest with you. We never recruit, our recruiter doesn't get a bonus for hiring. Okay. And I think that translates out into, we're all concerned about retention. And so we will never lie to the person that we're recruiting. So if somebody out there has questions and just wants to kick the tires, we're confidential and be happy to chat with them.
I love it. I love it.
Communication.
Yeah, that's exactly it. That's exactly it.
You gotta hire people that are better than you.
Shelley and Carrie, I really appreciate this. This has been such a lovely chat with you, and of course, congratulations on everything that's going so very well this year, despite the freight market. And yeah, thank you so much for joining me, and I hope we get a chance to do this again very, very soon.
Great, we so appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Rick. We appreciate it so much.
Absolutely. Thanks again.
Yeah.
All right, bye-bye.